So this past weekend was the NXL Sunshine State Major, or the first event of the NXL season, and wow, there was a lot of crazy stuff that happened this weekend, but one game in particular that I want to talk about is the New Orleans Hurricanes versus Los Angeles Infamous in the wild card play-in match on Sunday. If you guys watched this game, you already know this was the craziest, slowest point we've probably seen in a long time. The end result was a 1-0 in favor of Hurricanes, so I figured I'd come on here and share with you guys what I think we can learn from that, and maybe some things that either team could have improved on for it not to end like this. So let's get into that. So as you can see, the breakout for both teams is pretty standard. You can't see Infamous on your screen just yet, but both teams break out with 5 alive. But what you'll quickly see is that Infamous's Snake player gets to the 50 early and opts to hold a cross-field shot on the Dorito side of the field, preventing the Hurricanes from making the Dorito 1 to Dorito 2 move the entire game. And in fact, he holds this cross-field shot until he eventually gets shot out by Stuart Ridgel, which is just absolutely insane to me. This first point is almost 10 minutes long. So we'll see this hold for the rest of the match. Infamous is the first to lose a body in this match, making it a 5-on-4 in favor of the Hurricanes, and by doing so, they break out to the Dorito corner to stop the bleeding on that side of the field, and everything else, like I said, is pretty standard up until this point. Again, Infamous is holding a cross-field shot from the Snake 50 over to the Dorito side of the field. It's pretty standard in the backfield for the Hurricanes. They're playing slow, they're pretty patient. Neither team wants to lose early points in this series because, again, this match will determine who plays into the actual tournament on Sunday. Pretty standard movement, getting up to the Dorito 1 now. And as you can see, heads up on your screen, Infamous is in the baby Dorito right now. Eventually, they will put 2 players on that side of the field. As I recall, it is still a 5-on-4 situation, but I am not exactly sure at this point in the game. Worst case scenario, it is a 4-on-4. And what we'll see is Ridgel slowly starting to move up the Snake side of the field to kind of dig out this Dorito player for Infamous. Other sorts of crazy moves that we see throughout this match is we'll in fact see Infamous's Snake 2 player, or the number 2 on the Snake side, back up to try and get a wider position on the Snake side of the field. Not a bad play, honestly. The position that he was in was essentially going to guarantee his teammate dies to a run through and that they would trade at best, but he wants to prevent his teammate from being run down so that they can continue to hold the Dorito side of the field. So now Infamous has spread their positioning on the field. They have 2 players on the Dorito side, 2 players on the Snake side, again with this Snake side hold. And we'll see that the New Orleans Hurricanes eventually puts that together as we start to see Ridgel slowly creep up the field on the Snake side, looking for that Dorito player. He's getting sneaky in the low crawl, still looking for the corner, possibly the can on the Dorito side, just to see where that body is. Again, it is a 4-on-4 right now. Ridgel again still looking Dorito side, can't find the players, trying to get lots of different angles. But as you can see, the move, even with a player in the corner, he can still blast the guy in the Snake 50. So there's no reason for him to not commit to that move. Even if he trades out, he eliminates a player in a pretty key position. If we were to look at this from Infamous's perspective, this guy holding the crossfield shot could be doing a lot more than just staring at this gap the entire game. He could be coming up over the top. He could be threatening Ridgel's positioning even from an inside wrap because he has so much control that direction, or he can start looking on the outside. But now as you see, Ridgel slowly moves up, puts together that this player is holding the crossfield, shoots him in the back of the head, and now is in incredible positioning to essentially win the point right now. But we're going to see, again, another crazy move from the New Orleans Hurricanes here in just a second. So Ridgel backs up, still trying to find the Dorito player, does not find the player, and backs up to the 50. Now this is okay, but then he moves back again. He moves back to his original positioning where he couldn't see the Dorito player, and he's still trying to communicate to his team as to exactly where he is. But unfortunately, that's a pretty big mistake. There's really no reason for him to back up from their Snake side of the field all the way to essentially the center-ish position of the field, because he still has 2 players alive on the Dorito. They're fighting a 2-on-2 right now. There's no reason for him to back up and essentially remove the advantage that they just gained by eliminating one of Infamous's Snake side players. Still looking, can't find the players, and now we see Infamous moving further and further up the field. New Orleans Hurricanes just losing another Dorito side player. It is a 4-on-3 right now, despite New Orleans Hurricanes losing one of their players on the Dorito side. And now Ridgel is in a pretty good position to support the only Dorito side player left. But again, he left the Snake side in which they had the strongest advantage. If nothing else, they may have wanted to swing their Snake corner player all the way over to help their Dorito side player, as opposed to Ridgel doing so. And again, we'll see another crazy move move here where Rigel is peeking around, looking for wherever that Dorito player is, can't seem to find him, but is going to be in the middle of the field for several seconds right now, still trying to find this player's loader on Infamous, can't seem to do so. The Infamous players get some sort of indication that he's doing this and wraps and is able to kill him. Just as he does so, though, gets clipped by one of New Orleans Hurricanes players. So it's now a 3-on-2. Right now, Infamous has a player in the Dorito side corner and in the Snake side corner. Now, as you guys know, if you played this layout, that Snake side corner is really hard to dig a player out of. It is very well fortified, and by the time you can see that player on the opposite side of the field, you're pretty far up there. So their best bet is to honestly push into the Snake, ignore the Snake corner right now, and just shoot him and pinch the player out in the Dorito corner, which you can see New Orleans Hurricanes Snake player in the 50 is really poised to do so. If he just gets low, crawls all the way up to Infamous's Snake side mini wedge, then this game is over. There's no reason for him to be challenging this Dorito corner player from the 50 bunker at this point. If he got up to their Snake 50, the guy would be dead to rights. I mean, aside from all the things that we saw leading up to this point, this is perhaps the single move that led to the longest point in this entire tournament. Again, both teams are just digging their heels in, not wanting to lose this point, but we still have several minutes before this point is over. Now, you could theorize what other moves Hurricanes could have made to close out this point aside from that Snake side move, but honestly, that is the most straightforward solution to this puzzle right now. That, you know, sure, there's other moves that Hurricanes could have made to blow open this point and to end it sooner, and fortunately for them, they end up winning this point, so they weren't feeling the pressure to close out this point as much as Infamous was feeling that. But now you can see Infamous is really trying to kill out their Dorito player because that's the weak point of Hurricanes positioning right now. Now, finally, we start to see some play action here on the Snake side of the field for the Hurricanes, where their player leaves the corner, gets up into the 50, and is now getting into their Snake side, which this should have happened several minutes ago, at least 2 minutes earlier. We do see, I believe, Pate from the Hurricanes holding this crossfield shot, trying to protect the Dorito side player. Honestly, that's a great hold. It's not a problem that he's doing that, but it's just the fact that we really should have seen some more movement into the Snake way earlier. Now, as a result of them being in their Snake side of the field, they end up plucking out Infamous's Dorito side player and instantly hanging the flag. Now, to be fair, if you were in Infamous's position, it would have been pretty hard to know when exactly you should have blown that flag prior to when they did, because anything's possible. The game was going slow enough that, you know, Hurricanes could have made more mistakes for them to lose more players. But now that they blew the point so late, they only have 5 minutes and 30-ish seconds left in this match, which would be a lot of time to certainly tie up this series, but also win it. But if we learned anything from that first point, this second one is going to take at least as long. So let's take a look. Again, a pretty standard breakout for both teams, but Infamous gets really great positioning early on in this match with one player in the 50 brick and another player in the 50 brick on the Snake side of the field. And they hold this really, really deadly cross, which is really hard to break out of. The challenge for Infamous is that the Hurricanes don't actually have to leave their backfield positioning to win this match. If the time runs out, which it will, then the Hurricanes will end up winning this point. So long as they don't make a mistake by overexposing themselves as they're trying to dig into their bunkers, then they'll be fine. So it's really on Infamous to actually put together a game plan to attack the Hurricanes. As you can see, tons of pressure on everybody in the back line of the Hurricane squad. I love that we can see some bright colored shells flying in the air. This is just unbelievable, especially with the sun the way that it was. Great angle here, again, on Rigel holding a crossfield shot on the Dorito side of the field. But as we said, this game is in Infamous's hand. If they want to certainly tie the series or win it, they have to do something. New Orleans Hurricanes can just sit in the backfield and wait till Infamous runs through their guns. But right now, you can see that the biggest weakness in Hurricanes setup right now is that their can is really the only person that's stopping Infamous's Snakeside player from getting into Hurricane's Snakeside. Now, there is a little bit of a drop shot from the Snakeside tower as well as this Dorito side can, but you can make an opportunity happen by just simply taking the challenge and doing something. Again, it's on Infamous to make something happen so they don't just simply run out of time and lose the series. Right now, what needs to happen is Infamous's Snakeside player needs to crawl, get low, and get into Hurricane Snakeside, which would instantly blow open this point because they would be able to pluck out New Orleans Hurricanes can player on the Dorito side. But again, they're content to hold this cross field hold between these two bunkers here. With only a minute and 26 seconds left, eventually Infamous decides, hey, we probably need to do something or we're going to run out of time. So we can see Infamous's Snakeside player getting on a low inside wrap on that 50 brick on the Snake side to try and see what's going on in the middle of the field. But right now, you're under the gun. You only have about 60 seconds left to make make something happen, which kind of makes people act recklessly, right? Hurricanes improving their positioning by moving up to that snake side juice box, and again, holding a cross field just to ensure that there's no sort of silliness going on in the middle of the field, all the while being protected by his snake corner who's looking downrange on the wire. This is a great hold for Hurricanes. Again, they don't have to do anything. They just have to wait for the time to run out and shoot these gaps. But again, now we start to see some creeping going on in this brick. Honestly, a pretty creative move, but it's a little too late because he's feeling a lot of pressure to make something happen. He shoots at the can, who he doesn't end up getting, and just gets blown apart as a result of that, which, aside from everything else that has happened up until this point, that is certainly the nail in the coffin for this series. They're in a 2-on-5 situation at the moment. There's just no real way for Infamous to win this point now. All they have left is one player in the snake and one player in the Dorito side who gets absolutely destroyed as he tries to run down the center of the field, which then Hurricanes finishes it off by running down the snake player. So what is it that we can learn from this? Well, first, we can certainly make the assumption that Infamous had a well-structured game plan going into that play, especially in the Pro Division. There's no way that 5 players on Infamous didn't go out understanding what their jobs were or what they were trying to do in that first point. But there does reach a point in which after 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes maybe, you really got to start to put something together. Otherwise, your opponent is going to do that. And the Hurricanes especially are a very creative team. They like to do a lot of those ghosting plays where they're using a lot of blinds in the center of the field to find heads, hoppers, packs, and so forth. Even if you didn't know that about this squad, you would still not want to hold a gap for so long that you essentially remove yourself from the game. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you don't always have to be the player to win the game for your team, right? Stuart Ridgel is an incredible player. Obviously, he's a big component to that team and their success. Really, everybody is. But as you can see, if you feel like the play is entirely on your shoulders, you will get very creative and sometimes not in the best ways. I know some of us like to fantasize being Fedorov on Houston Heat and doing these crazy backpedaling plays where we end up eliminating 5 players in the opposite team. But sometimes it's best to hold your ground, especially when you've earned that, and wait for your team to develop a play around you. And lastly, we can't rely on our opponents to make a mistake for us to win the game. What we saw in that second point for Infamous was that they had a really strong center crossfield hold, but Hurricanes wasn't in any position or feeling any pressure to move through the zones that they were holding. Now, certainly if those roles were reversed and it was the Hurricanes holding that crossfield hold, then things would be a lot different because now Infamous has to move through those guns in order to win the point. But Infamous was in great position and really poised to at least tie the series with 5 minutes left in the match. But anyway, I thought that point was absolutely insane, at least on its face, and I wanted to talk about it here on the channel. So let me know what you guys thought of that, maybe some things that you learned from it. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you later.